Exiled from the shining metropolis of Goshen. Memories wiped. And loosed into a walled concrete warren of slums. Residents must eke out a living amidst the crime, poverty, and suffocating overcrowding. Sure, you could ride the bullet home if you've got the credits and the luck to win the lotto. But you're not a rich corpo in town for a deal or some mirror-head on deployment. You're here to stay. You're home. You're in Eden Redux.
And hello, welcome to Band of Badgers. I'm Dave, your host for this session, and joining us as our Q&A guest this time is Megan Caves from Gone Rogue Entertainment. How you doing, Megan? How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. We got a load of questions to get through, so we've got about an hour to kind of fit as much in as we can. Joining me as co-host this time is Jen. How are you doing, Jen?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm still good. It's been like a couple of seconds. I'm still good.
Excellent.
It must be the snow where you is. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Jen has snow. If you're confused by the accent.
Not now. Not now. It's just freezing out right now.
Oh, is it just freezing?
Oh, it's just freezing. The snow melted, and now it's just freezing.
Okay. Well, we have kind of three countries hooked up here. We have the States, we have the UK, and then we have Norway. Did I get it right that time?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay. An American in Norway. That's what we're like.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you have questions for Megan, please do put them into live chat so we can see. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't bother typing it in because you missed it. But just enjoy the show. That's fine. You can still ask Megan questions. You'll find Megan on socials. We'll have those listed in live chat as we go. So for those of you who don't know who Megan is, she is an actor, a producer, and now a new business owner with Gone Rogue Entertainment. So, Megan, before we get into all those kind of questions, can you just kind of tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I mean, you covered some of it. I can tell you, I came out to Los Angeles way back in 2008 to do some acting, the classic story of that, and found my way into TTRPGs, and it's a blast, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept doing it, and here I am. That's kind of where I am now. And then, like you said, I've got a whole bunch of random new stuff that I'm stepping out onto a ledge to do.
But that's the best way to do it. You know, if I always say, if you want to do something, just do it, because the worst thing is wishing that you've done something. So it doesn't matter if you fail or you succeed. You've got to keep trying and do those things. But it makes you nervous, but you keep on doing it. So with everything that's going on, how we're gonna jump right in with Coven. Coven is kind of wrapped up recently. How was that for you? How was that a different experience for you from the previous shows that you've done?
Well, it was different in that it was completely my show. The only other, so I've done some mini campaigns. I'll kind of go over where I started. So I started with Saving Throw. If y'all don't know Saving Throw show, Wildcard's actually here to my left. That is from Saving Throw show right there. That's where I started. Did a lot of stuff with them. Still love them. Huge part of them, and that channel. And then I jumped over and did some stuff with dragons and things. And now I am doing things here and there and starting my own company, Gone Rogue. So that's kind of where I'm at in all of this. And so over at Saving Throw, I was a cast member I was cast member on Wild Cards, which was our Savage World show that we did for 5 years. But I was also producer for that. So I did a lot of the behind the scenes, the social media, all of that kind of stuff. But my husband is the one who ran that show. So I worked with him. We kind of worked together. I did a lot of the behind the scenes to make his vision look like what he wanted it to look like. The first show that I really did that was mine, that was a campaign length, was actually at Dragons and Things with Department of Mysteries. Yep. Department of Mysteries is also Savage Worlds, but it's Harry Potter meets the Ripper setting, which is a Victorian steampunk universal monster setting. which is a really nice setting, but it's just the way you describe it. Ripper, Jack the Ripper, and Harry Potter. Okay.
That's an excellent mix.
I know, yeah. You know what? It worked really well. It was really amazing. So I did that, and that was so the difference for me between that and what Harbingers has been and what Coven, the first, or the chapter as I'm calling the seasons, the first season, was that was entirely my own story. Whereas for Department of Mysteries, I used the plot point campaign. So in Savage Worlds, they call their I forget what the other word is, but the plot points, it's the campaigns that you can follow, the stories that you can follow. So I essentially used their Ripper's plot point campaign and then moved it around a bit to shove in some Harry Potter stuff and make it mine. Coven is all my own brain, just my own brain up in there, and that was intimidating and really rewarding in a lot of ways. It was absolutely terrifying, but I felt like by the end of it, I felt good about it. So that was the major different experience from anything else that I have done, and really in a lot of ways why Harbingers is kind of this. I mean, it's an experiment in a lot of ways on my part, or at least it has been so far. Hopefully I'm getting past the experimental phase. We'll see.
Well, you mentioned, and it looks like Randy has just joined the chat as well.
Oh, hi, Randy.
So if Coven is a story out of your own making and direction, now Coven, when I've watched Coven, it wasn't a happy story. It wasn't full of hope. There was they go through a lot.
Yeah.
And at the end, you kind of, the stuff happened. It was sad. It's an ending. Yeah. It's a good ending. It's sad. Randy, if you're the same Randy, I'm assuming you're the same Randy.
It is. Yeah, it is.
He was in tears.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy making the cast cry?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, coming from a theater background, that we were actually kind of talking about this before the show started. But one thing I really, really I like drama. I like the dramatics. And I think it's really interesting in improv in general. There's huge improv scene everywhere these days, but I was part of it for a little while here in Los Angeles. And obviously improv is when you think of improv, you think of comedy. It's comedy, and that's great. And I like comedy, but I also like drama, and there was no avenue for that. And when I discovered this streaming RPGs, well, I just discovered how to do dramatic improv in a way that I really enjoyed. Yep. And so for me, I really like the catharsis of sad stories and of there's something, I don't know what that is. I've always liked horror, and I like haunted house horror, and I like sort of that where you get that kind of tension and you have to go on this difficult journey to become this person that you are. And so I think, not even fully intentionally, Harbingers Coven very much became that. And, you know, as much as I love giving my players the opportunity to have those emotional journeys if they want them, it is really weird and hard when you're like, oh no, I'm making them so upset. Am I being too mean? Like, it is definitely a line sometimes. And on top of that, it's really important to have communication, which this cast, I've been very intent on making sure we have that communication, and they have also been really on board with that. And that has gone a long way with that kind of stuff, because otherwise, to be honest, I don't think I would do as much of that. Because no, I don't love making them cry unless I feel like it's this journey that they're like, ooh, I'm getting to do this performance that I really enjoy. Then I'm like, yeah, I made you cry in a good way.
But that's exactly it. I mean, the way you say it, it's a character journey. You hear these when we're playing these characters, look at all the hardships they go through. Now, sort of Band of Badgers, we play games very differently. We do it as if we're just sitting around a table and playing a game. So we don't do necessarily get into character. But I've been listening to Coven while I've been decorating the house. So I've seen some of the shots, but most of the time I'm just listening. And it's the various scenes. It's really good when people are helping to describe the scene, not just their emotions and what they're going through. But there's moments again. Randy's crying, but it gives everyone a chance to kind of like, I think you said you put your hand on his shoulder, and straight away it's like, okay, yeah, so now the way I'm picturing it, he's there, he's hugging, and the cast are just taking that moment, they've just stepped back and they've taken to have, okay, you need to get this out, and it didn't matter how long, there was no intervention, everyone was listening, everyone was a little bit kind of quiet, somber mood, and it was great. So to generate that is fantastic. And there's been some really, really hard hitting scenes, very tender moments throughout the whole of Coven. I've really, really enjoyed it. I know that something. Well, we've played the trailer. If you missed the trailer, we'll play the trailer again at the end. So I know something new is coming. Are we going to go back to Coven?
That's a good question. Well, let me tell you what the plan is for Harbingers.
Okay,
maybe that'll answer your question. So Harbingers is kind of like, it's not the best comparison, but kind of like the MCU. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what we're doing here is meeting our heroes. So Coven was our first set. Eden Redux is going to be the next set. The third season is going to be another set, a set in a different setting. And somehow we will discover altogether. Somehow all these things are going to come together. So we will see these characters again, but the setting will change, if that makes sense. And then where it'll go from there, a lot of that depends upon where these next seasons take us.
We've been talking a lot about the various scenes, making people cry. What's been your favorite scene, or what is? We had a lot of questions across socials, and I was trying to kind of split them up. And there was two types of question. One is, what has been your favorite scene for you, and what is the best type of scene that you want to create?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so okay, let's see. My favorite scene from Coven. That's a really hard question. Because I kind of have different ones. Like, for example, as a player, my favorite scene, if y'all know what I'm talking about here, if you've seen it, is near the end when Philip, actually one of the other players, was jamming, and Philip's character Bertram and my character Piper kind of had a little bit of a like budding relationship or love that was there. Crush probably is the best word for it. And we're trying to save Bertram, and I just startle him into essentially getting into this cube, which isn't going to make any sense if you haven't seen it, but it's the way to save him, right? And that was a really fun moment. I've gotten to play with Philip many times before, and but I haven't really gotten to. I've mostly jammed him. I've not gotten to play with him as much, so it was kind of interesting to switch that dynamic and play with that. But as a GM, I mean, there are a lot of scenes. I'll say one thing that is really fun with this cast in particular, and I guess this is probably true of any cast, but this is the most recent one, so they're top of mind. But is whenever I'm playing a character like the Collector or Mina Devlin in the scene, and they are just they buy into it so much, and that is the coolest thing ever for me to be playing this character that I'm like, okay, I've come up with this character and I'm playing it here, this is how I'm playing it, and this is how I'm interacting, and they clearly buy it. Like they aren't talking to Megan anymore, they're talking to the Collector, and that's a really cool feeling. Because it feels like I'm doing something right, and you're like, okay, I don't know what I've done, but it's working, and I'm happy about that. So those I loved throwing them in with the Collector. There were so many good emotional scenes that I really enjoyed, but I just loved to see how they responded to that. That was pretty. That and Mina, one of the other characters, was pretty fun. As a player, or I'll say as a player, what I really enjoy, I approach RPGs from an actor standpoint. I like combat. Combat's fun and everything, but what I really like is the narrative and the opportunity to be a character that goes on a journey in the story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to start somewhere and become a different character by the end. I want her, whoever her, maybe Piper in this, for this example, I'll give you an example of what I wanted for her. Piper started off as kind of a Percy Weasley, as a kind of brown noser, because she felt like she needed to do everything right. This perfectionistic, really intense, judgmental type person, who's just trying to do the best and is trying to do everything right and listen to her superiors. And the journey I wanted her to go on was the discovery that sometimes your superiors make bad decisions. Mm-hmm. And where does that leave you? What have you done by listening to them so completely? How does that affect you? How does that affect the person you become? How does that make you feel? How does that change Piper? So I really like to go on those kinds of journeys. And I like scenes that allow me to express and experience that, because what I really love is interacting with the other players at the table. Yeah. That's where the best stuff comes from, is whenever you're really like just bouncing back and forth with somebody. As a GM, I love to get those really creepy, eerie scenes and actually make people, I'm always surprised when people go, like Diana sometimes, poor Diana, she does not like horror. And so at the end of episodes, sometimes she's like, I'm here in my apartment by myself and I'm scared. And I'm like, I'm so sorry you're scared, but I did it. It's working. You're scared.
Is that what inspired you to make her creeped out on the Whistler?
Hey, you know what? Yeah, the Whistler. It was me who went, hey Diana, let's do a horror short. Let's just do it. Let's figure it out. And she was like, okay. So she agreed to that. That's all on Diana.
She said yes.
She said yes.
Yeah.
She knew what she was in for.
Now, you mentioned Piper, and I just want to say that there was Moxie Blue in chat said that they have Addie and Piper both have a street named after them in their game right now because of how much they meant to them as characters.
That's really cool. Thanks.
So
Moxie.
it wasn't really a question, but it was just a comment that I thought was really nice.
Oh, that's awesome. I love, Adelaide. She's a good character too.
just to point out to everyone who's watching us live, if you have a question for Meghan, please do put it into live chat. Let us know your questions. Don't wait for us to ask questions. Put in your own question. Like, for example, the question just arrived.
Yes. As an actor, do you prefer playing the good guy or the bad guy?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question. I love playing bad guys. I really do. So I did a job with Diana and Philip and Adam Kahn, four of my, I count three of my cast members, and my husband. A lot of us, we did this job at this place called Swordplay. It was action events. We did birthday parties we did kids' birthday parties and character. We did sword fights at these birthday parties. And I got to play Bellatrix Lestrange, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
I didn't know where this was going. I had kid parties and then horror. I was like, what? I'm going to skip
Bellatrix.
This would be a birthday you remember.
Yes. It was fun. It was her and Harley Quinn.
I think bad guys get more interesting backstories.
They do. A lot of times. You get to do so many weirder, crazier things. Like in college, I got to be a witch in Macbeth, which was probably one of my first experiences of really getting to play kind of a weird bad guy. And it was so much fun. I loved it. I don't get me wrong. I really do like playing the good guys, but I'm with you. I think bad guys have it's way more interesting as a performer to get to play a bad guy.
I love watching bad guys too. Like they're fun to see in action.
They have fun doing it. You can tell when those guys are just, yes,
it's
great.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There was one other question, if I can, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Okay. Where did your idea for the Harbingers actually come from? And that was from Raja 012.
Oh, that's Randy. Randy's trying to get some sneaky info here from me.
Inside, yeah. Randy, don't forget, like and subscribe. just saying that. Just saying.
Hit the button. button. It's down there. Or up. Where is it on the thing? I don't even know.
I don't know. It says somewhere.
Somewhere.
It's somewhere.
The idea from Harbingers, it kind of went all over the place. The initial idea was to do a series of settings from Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds, if you all don't know about it, has a lot of different settings. So they have Deadlands, they have a bunch of different settings within Deadlands, they have Rifts, they have Savage Pathfinder, they have just so many things. And so my initial idea was to actually do different settings and then bring them all together. And then as that went on, I continued to kind of go, okay, I'm going to have I knew I was going to have my first 3 episodes seasons or chapters were going to be a different set of heroes. And I kind of wanted those to be set in different, very disparate settings. And I had my ideas for those settings, which I'm not going to tell you because that would give too much away. But obviously, one of them was Coven, and another one was a cyberpunk setting, and then there is another setting that will be discovered later on. And I kind of realized that they could all take place in the same world, and thought, hey, that's even cooler. So that's kind of where it ended up. It kind of, I feel like I kind of created it backwards almost in that way.
There's an interesting question that came up in chat when you mentioned that. That says, are they going to be the same characters?
No, they are not going to be the same characters. There are going to be new characters for Cyberpunk, and there will be new characters for the 3rd season, but then you're going to see all those characters again, because what's going to happen is, in some crazy way that we're going to figure out how to do, everybody's going to come together and work together.
Time travel fixes everything.
Time travel, exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. Just to point out, Randy actually did subscribe and like. Thank you very much, Randy.
Yay, Randy.
And he says he wasn't being sneaky at all. Eric Frankhouse has just turned up. Hi, Eric. Just do a shout out to Eric. Yeah, Mr. Frankhouse is in the house. Hi, Eric. And a shout out to Andrew Statton. I don't know if he's in the chat, but yeah. Those two are usually always paired up somewhere. We got some other questions. You mentioned Savage Worlds, and we've mentioned Coven and the team that you're in. We actually got a lot of questions through socials asking advice generally, how you get onto role-playing groups who do live streams. I think there's a different opening there. We do ours because Band of Badgers is a social club here in the UK, so we open that up. So how did you meet the team? What were the connections?
Oh, well, I'll start at the beginning. For Saving Throw, where I started back in 2016, I actually had a friend at the time out here in Los Angeles who was doing a show with them and asked me if I wanted to play, asked me and my husband if we wanted to play. And that show was Black Bag, which was Call of Cthulhu. It was cyberpunk, actually, Call of Cthulhu. And we said, yeah, that sounds cool, because we played RPGs with them and we were into RPGs, and we were like, hey, we can mix it with performance. Well, okay, that's really weird, but sure, why not? So we started doing that, and it took off. And that was really when everything was in its infancy at that time, as far as TTRPG streaming went. We were just kind of I don't know, figuring it out. And then the next year we got into Savage Worlds with Wild Cards, which is the show that my husband, Jordan Capes Callerman, began. And that kind of took me to where I am now in a lot of ways, because that cast, we were so passionate. Just everybody was so excited and passionate, and we really worked hard at it and built it up and did we just had a lot of fun. We did a lot of really fun things with it. I had a lot of drive. And then from there, how I got with this, the Harbingers group is working swordplay, is the job I mentioned before. It was kind of crazy because Jordan and I worked there, and Diana and Adam were also just a year later started streaming Dragons and Things. And so we were kind of doing the same thing, completely separate of each other at the same time. And kind of through there, I got to know Adam Rady, who's one of the executive producers over at Dragons and Things. And it just kind of continued to build. And and in this whole time, the whole community was just like becoming an industry all around us, which is crazy. Like it's been a really fascinating experience to kind of ride an industry from the beginning. So for that question, you know, I think there's an infinite amount of ways for you to do that. It's really, really weird because at the very beginning, it was just kind of like, who do you know? You? Great. We have a camera. Let's go and do that. And in a lot of ways, that's still the case. I think the big thing to remember, and I think this depends on the question you're asking, is the question that you're asking, hey, I want to be a TTRPG player in some of these bigger productions that I see. That's one thing. If you're asking, hey, all I want to do is stream RPGs, that's another thing. Anybody can stream RPGs. Literally, like this camera I got right here is a little Logitech camera, not overly, it's like maybe $50.
Same.
Here I am, straight some lights. Like you can start pretty simply, especially if you're doing it like that. You don't need a whole lot to be able to sit down and do it. That does not mean it's easy. I will not say, I don't think anybody you are ever going to talk to in the TTRPG space is going to tell you this is easy, no matter how large or small of a scale you're doing it on. But that's one way. In regards to getting into bigger things, I think it's weird, you know. I don't even know if I know the answer to that. One thing I will say, and I really have a lot of respect for this, and I hope it continues to go this direction, but I'm seeing a lot of companies and people when they're doing shows is literally put out auditions for it, which I think is how it should be as it grows into an industry. I think it's really great for new people to be able to be seen and to get pulled in. But at the end of the day, at least in Los Angeles, it's a very much like the entertainment industry. It's incestuous. It's who you know. It's just a bunch of people who are like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, let's get this person. Oh, I'm connected to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it does seem to have some bearing on the games you play. Yeah. If you're playing a lot of D&D, D&D's, you know, where the big stuff is. If you're playing other systems, it might be a little bit easier to find some to get on, simply because there's less people playing those. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but essentially what I want to say to that is it's going to be unique to you. It's really great that anybody can do it. And you can sit down and you can start doing that. And I'm more than happy to like talk more about that. Or I'll tell you a person who's really good with that kind of stuff on the tech side is Dom Zook over at Saving Throw. He actually, I think Saving Throw has a series they're getting ready to do with that. So you can learn a little bit more about it. But yeah, hopefully that answers that question. I know it's a broad one because there isn't really a like definitive way. There just isn't.
You mentioned something you were saying there. You mentioned as this stuff, as RPG storytelling via stream and building characters that way, and especially for actors who are doing roles or playing roles, is becoming something. And I think it's still early days of what that is. It's becoming something in the industry. Is that what we'll cover? Kind of Gone Rogue Entertainment, your new business, but is that what you kind of hope to step into? Are you going to concentrate in that market?
Yeah. What I've always really wanted to do is continue to marry more theatricality into TTRPGs. I think there is room for so many different ways to play. It's kind of like you were saying earlier, I believe, is that you all play more like a group of people sitting around a table, maybe don't do as much RP. It's so cool because there is space for every different kind, because there are so many people that want to see all the different kinds of games. Some people, I think, clearly enjoy seeing a very RP heavy story base. It's almost more of a performance than it is a game at times. And then I think other people really prefer to see a lot of combat and getting down into the crunch and like, you know, sort of how do you maximize the different skills and things like that. And I think there's a place for all of that. And I think that's super cool. But yeah, I really want to continue to highlight the role play. And one way that I've really wanted to look at it is almost like this is dramatic improv using RPGs as the vehicle to tell the story, almost flipping it, just to kind of see, like, if you approach it like that, what does that mean? What does that look like? And that's kind of the question I want to see if I can answer for myself with Gone Rogue.
That's nice.
In a way.
It's a
We'll
nice
see.
it's a nice way to do it. I think there's it's very much a watch this space. Let's see what like next year brings and everything there. I think again from what I've seen, I want to see how you top that because of, like
Me too.
this is there you go. It's good. It's really good, and the story again, the
thanks.
storytelling, the cast, everything. It is top notch. It is definitely worth getting into. You will end up falling in love with the characters and the actors themselves. So do have a go at that. Eric Frankhouse, who's in live chat. Thank you for Eric for hanging around. He's also given his own sort of advice out there. Moxie, one of your questions was you also do some streaming. We as Band of Badgers, we have guest spots. So if you want to test the waters or meet new people, get in touch and come on as a guest. Come on as a guest player. We'll happily have you.
You should definitely talk to Moxie. Moxie is just started her own GM show, and she's done her own system, I believe.
Cool, fantastic. Definitely get in touch then, Moxie. Let's do this. Before we go into Gone Rogue, we've just passed the half hour. We're going to try to keep this for an hour. We can, I don't know. If you have questions, we'll keep asking. But you mentioned Savage Worlds and you mentioned D&D. So let's compare the two. Savage Worlds is very, very different to D&D. D&D, as we've seen over the many years, 5th edition is incredibly popular, and there's some turmoil going on at the moment with D&D. What made you select? How did you fall into Savage Worlds and not do D&D?
Well, that is kind of an interesting way to ask that question, because I did play D&D, and I started with 3.5, and that's all I wanted to play. Yeah. I was surprised at the time to hear that there were other RPG systems. I was like, what? Why would you need another system? You have Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is a very common thought, and it's an understandable one, especially if you're like me, who does not like to learn rules and has a hard time. I like is not the right word. I have a hard time learning them. My brain does not want to hold that stuff in. Yeah. So learning a new system is overwhelming for me. But my husband, Jordan Caves Common, as I mentioned before, was my main GM, and he found Savage Worlds and said, I think this might be my system. And I was like, I want to play D&D. I don't know about this. And so, so we played a home game, and I died in the second I want to say episode, the second session. I died, and I was pissed, and I did not like it. I was mad. I was so mad.
So did that fall out into like the game's finished and you're still angry? Like,
I was legit pissed. I was like, excuse me, do not kill this character, because I built this character that I really liked, and it's like, excuse me, I want to play her. And so at first I really didn't like the system, because if you come from D&D and you go to Savage Worlds and you try to play it like you play D&D, you're going to get yourself killed, because Savage Worlds is a much more brutal system, because it doesn't have the attrition hit point system. You have 3 wounds, and if you take a wound, you're at a negative. And if you take 3 wounds, if you take 4 wounds, you're potentially dead. Yep. It's very, very different, but you have to hit. So that is one of those things that you have to really kind of get used to. But once I got used to it, I really liked it. So after that point, as I mentioned Wildcards before, Jordan started that show. I was a cast and producer on that show. And the more I played it, and that we started off in Deadlands, which for those of you who don't know is a Weird West. So it's horror, supernatural, alternate history West. It's dense with just amazing lore and creatures, and it's just it made me like Westerns. Let me put it that way. It gave me a love for them. And so as I played that game, and I enjoyed the combat, and I enjoyed the way it facilitated the kind of storytelling that I like to tell, I just fell in love with it. And then I tried to play other systems. Then I tried to go back to Dungeons and Dragons, and I enjoy it for certain things, but the combat doesn't engage me in the same way. Essentially, either my husband and or Savage Worlds ruined me. It ruined me.
Yep. Is he in the back? Is he watching this?
Oh, he was, but he just left. So, but yeah,
the door slammed. Yeah. What?
It was always my plan.
Wahaha. Yeah, I believe that. But yeah, and then eventually because I played it so much, I'm such a kinesthetic learner. I learned it really well.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I started letting myself GM it, and it's really easy to GM. It's sort of like a toolbox, and you just use what you want. So that works really well for me. And I haven't yet had cause to go anywhere else as a GM for the most part. So that's where I am currently.
So we've had so while we're doing this, now Megan and Jen can't see the pictures because we're in Zoom. This is just the overlay, but we've got Twitch open next to us, so we can see some of the photos going past. We got a lot of questions about your costuming.
Yeah.
Do you make these? Are they made for you? And then how? Jen mentioned it before we came on air. Like, how long does it take you to do this? Because it's, as you say, you're very theatrical.
I'm very curious.
And then you've got to do all this again for the next episode.
Yeah.
So how do you go about how long does it take you to create a new skin and then reapply it?
Oh, that's a good question. It really depends on the character. So some characters come to me really, really fast. I just get excited. I get so excited about creating a new costume, creating a new makeup, new hair. And generally I kind of start with an idea. Like, I'll use Piper as an example. So Piper, I knew I wanted to play a character who kind of was going to see her idols fall. That's kind of what I knew. So I thought, okay, let's figure out the setting. This is where we're set. What color do I want to add to her? Okay, if I go with that color, then what kind of outfit am I looking for? How am I going to show that she's a bit stuck up? Like, what does that mean in her makeup? Those kinds of things. And then also there's always that, like, but also I like to play with red, so I'm going to put a lot of red on. It gets a little mixed between the two. But honestly, a lot of what I do for the costumes, I have a lot of costume pieces, especially after doing swordplay for 8 years. I had so many characters. I was Hermione, I was Ginny Weasley, I was Bellatrix Lestrange, I was Harley Quinn, I was Wonder Woman, I was Rey, I was Princess Leia, I was Misty from Pokemon. I have so many pieces because we had to build our own costumes for that. And then also I was working with all these other people who had all these costume pieces who would go, I don't want these anymore. Somebody come and take them. So you just end up with all these random bits. Yeah. So I've got a lot of that. And then honestly, I'll use Amazon or eBay, or I'll say what I know Diana and Adam tend to do is they go to Goodwill and then they modify things, which when it comes to costumes and stuff like that, they're very clever with that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of me just kind of searching the internet for looks. And then I go, oh, that inspires something. Yeah. Let me see what I can find. I'm looking for this kind of thing. So for example, my new character that I'm creating for Eden Redux, which I'm not going to tell you about, but she's coming to me really fast, right? I'll give you another example. Hallie, who was over at Dragons and Things, it was Dragons and Things, The Power of the Universe, was incredibly hard for me to create. And I don't actually think, I don't know if I gave you any pictures of Hallie, but she was kind of her whole thing, she lived outside of time and space. And she could kind of imagine what her costume was, but it was fantasy. So I was like, okay, how do I do space fantasy without, what is it? So hers was very difficult for me, but I ended up really liking the outcome. So it's kind of a hit and miss. It's very much a piecemeal. How can I put these things together and will they look good type thing more than anything. Yeah.
And but I do it myself. Does it take a long time to put everything on?
It depends. Piper took a little bit longer. Her makeup was a little bit more precise. So that one Piper took me a good hour to get ready each time. But then I had other ones like Adelaide, who was a modern character. And just, I did have to put extensions in my hair because at the time my hair was like this short and she had long hair. So that took some time.
Wow.
But yeah, it didn't take too long. And honestly, I just have so much fun with it that I don't really mind the time. It's fun to I just enjoy putting on costumes and playing a character. So even if it does take a while, I don't like Rosaline, who was one of my first characters that I did a lot of that with, the Western soiled dove, right there. She's right to my left now. Hers took a long time. She had a corset and all kinds of stuff that was just a whole
corsets
ordeal.
are lovely, but they take forever to put on, and they're
yes.
kind of uncomfortable after a
Yes.
while.
Yes, they do.
So speaking of costumes, we had 2 costume questions.
Oh.
Eric Frankhouse asked, how big is your costume closet?
It's a third of my closet is my costumes, and our closet is like maybe a wall, not a very big wall, and so that doesn't take up it takes up a lot of space. And then we also have 2 giant tubs under the bed of other costume pieces, and that doesn't count the like weapons that are leaned up against the wall, and the hats and the wigs that are in the top of the closet, and then all the extra shoes.
Of course,
it's a lot.
Yeah. And then Baron's Nohan had a follow-up to that. It's, which is your favorite character costume?
Ooh, that is a hard question. I really liked Celestina. So Celestina was Wildcard. She was now to my left, Celestina. She was a witch in the Weird West, a fortune teller, kind of just all over the place. She was actually a Romanian royal in exile, and she was just a mess. And her costume was so much fun because her whole thing, she was kind of inspired by Bellatrix. Mm-hmm. So her whole thing was to be physically intimidating, and also she also just kind of wore whatever she liked to wear. That was so much fun. I had so much fun putting together her makeup and costume. And so while I love all of my costumes, and Rosaline is a very, very, very close second for me, Celestina is still probably one of my favorites. So, yeah.
We've got so in the box below, Megan, you will see some various other photos going through. You've got some cast photos in there, kind of like in a photo studio, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where do you get the photos done? Is that kind of because obviously you're all near each other for you to be in the same place at the same time. It's not like us; we're in 3 different countries right now. But is that part of the promotion piece, or is that something else where you're all just having some fun? Do you go LARPing and in costume as well?
Oh, that would be fun.
Do you go to conventions as your characters?
Oh, we did do that for Wildcards. I have done that for Wildcards, but I haven't been to a convention since I've been doing Harbingers and some of these other shows. But if we did a bunch of live shows at Gen Con and things like that, and we would wear our costumes for that. But yeah, like the photo that's there below is one from our Coven photo shoot. So all of our photos, both that one were there with Wildcards, and the Harbingers ones were done with this photographer here in Los Angeles. His name is Andrew Max Levy. Highly recommend him. He's amazing photographer. But yeah, that's promotion. We book him and we go to his place and we shoot those photos. All of those. Some of these have been done at his studio, and some of them were done. The Wildcards ones were done at the Saving Throw studio, and then we did some outside. We hired people for that. That one right there is from Dark Lanterns, and that one right below me is from actually Rick Bear took that photo. He's another photographer in the LA area. But I will say for Harbingers, Randy does not live here in Los Angeles. Randy actually lives in Seattle. Yeah. And so he had to fly out for that, which is amazing to me. Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. There's a shot there where there's 3 of you there, all in a kind of battle pose, cast pose. It's a really kind of superhero shot. It's great. And then a picture that's just come on right now is with you with like a longbow. I mean, are these your own weapons as well?
That is not. So that one actually was a different photographer, because that's with Dragons and Things. That was back when we were doing Dragons and Things Bantam. That's Grace. And those weapons were supplied, I believe. There's Diana there on the left in the black.
Just in the rogue outfit there, just hooded up.
That's Diana. Yeah. She has a lot of weapons as well. Her and Adam have a whole lot. And so I think they supplied some of those, which was super cool because I got to play with that bow. But that was actually done at the Dragons and Things studio with a different photographer. But it was the same thing. It was a promotional shoot. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Then we're going to move on to some. We've been talking a lot about the different shows. And the reason for the show is because, and the way that when I got in touch with you is because you announced on social a few weeks ago that you're starting your own business. This is a new venture, and this is Gone Rogue Entertainment. You've already kind of released The Whistler, which is not role play as such. This is a short horror film, which is good. Which is a nice little story there. And Diana just creeping out at home, being scared as normal now. Now we know she's normally scared.
Yep, that's Diana.
Are we going to see more of these kind of short stories?
That's my goal, yeah. So my whole thing with Gone Rogue is to do things in unconventional ways. I have run into in the entertainment industry, and I think this is probably true everywhere, but a lot of best practices. And what I'm saying with that is sometimes I see people get stuck in the way things are supposed to be done. And I think that can be very limiting. I think there's a lot you can do with a lot less than you think you can. And I am essentially using Gone Rogue to prove that to myself. So that's something, that we will see, but it is actually a skill set of mine. I've discovered through all of this TTRPG stuff that I've done, through the social media that I run, all these various different things, that I have a skill of taking very little and doing a lot with it. And so I'm putting my money where my mouth is and attempting to do that with a production company. And in a lot of ways, me going, here's this production company is kind of a brain thing for me, of me being able to go, okay, here's this legitimate thing, Megan, here's this thing that you have that you can do and you are capable of, and you're going to do it. So we will hopefully see that I am capable and can do all those things. But yeah, my goal is to do more of those shorts. It was a lot of fun to do that. It was intimidating, but we did it honestly, I'm still kind of surprised it happened because it was just kind of a hey, let's do this thing. Hey, Jordan has an idea. Hey, Jordan's wrote a script. Hey, do you have a day off? Let's shoot it. Let's edit it. Let's put it out there.
Because it seems so simple. There's you walking down the street, and then Diana's just basically like this, sitting in a chair, having a chat, and you're kind of, you're poking at things you shouldn't poke at, basically. And then things happen, and then it's down to, oh no, what's gone wrong? And the happiness drops. This isn't two friends catching up, or I'm just going down this spooky street, blah blah blah, and then where have you gone? I've lost contact, and then I thought Diana was very good. She drops out, and then. It was really nice touch. The Whistler, it's a really simple book because it's happening now. You get goosebumps because that's what I mean. So the simplicity of the story like that, one person to another person in two different locations, and then the same thing happens. It can be quite spooky, and that's what horror does. And horror is just the simple things which goes a little bit wrong. And I'm a big fan of horror myself, so I love those kind of stories. I did wonder if you were going to use those short stories to extend somehow your role-playing game shows.
That is definitely something. Finish your question.
No, I was thinking, is that going to be too hard for Eden? But for Coven, I guess you could do that because you've got the costumes and everything else. But then I guess that's the same answer. With Eden, you've already got the outfits, the story.
We do.
Here we go.
Well, one thing, I'll announce something here that I haven't announced yet.
Feel free,
that those of you get to know. Eden Redux is going to be different. It's going to be done differently. We're going to pre-record it. And the reason for that is because we're going to do it in a studio.
Fantastic.
And we're going to be able to do it all together. And that to me is such a big, huge thing. So having said that, yes, I very much have interest in doing essentially, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, but is essentially doing shorts that go along with the RPGs. But that's something I want to do. I'm not making any promises.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there. There's a ton of stuff there. You mentioned, so that's an exclusive, folks. There you go.
It is.
There it is. What can we tease anything else? We are just for everyone. We are down to the last 5 minutes. If you have a question for Megan,
another question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That goes on with the shorts. Eric had another question. With Gone Rogue now opening its doors, if you could get any IP for a short film, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, any IP for short film? Oh, that's a huge question.
Eric asks the hard questions.
Oh man, honestly, one thing I don't know if I'd do this for a short film because I think it'd be really hard, but I would love to do Mistborn. If y'all haven't read, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson.
Yes.
Oh
my God. I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
Right? Oh gosh, I know the magic in that world. It's just so cool. It's so cool. But having said that, man, I would love to do that. I'd love to do Doctor Who. Doctor Who is my heart. There's all kinds of stuff that, oh gosh, I don't know.
We could nerd out for forever.
Oh, I know. I could answer that question indefinitely.
Well, that's what I mean. Having your own production studio, production company, and then having access to a studio. That's it. That's you're done. Any toys and games you want to play, they're there. You just create them. You create your own worlds. You create your own fantasies. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. That's I love that. I love that aspect.
So I was going to say to everyone, we're down to the last 5 minutes. If you have a question for Megan, please do let us know in chat. Do not be shy. I'm going to go back to some of the other questions we had from socials. What is what's a role-playing game? We've kind of answered this in different ways, but what is a role-playing game that intrigues you the most? You mentioned horror, and I think you said the first show you did was Call of Cthulhu, or related Call of Cthulhu. Are we gonna? Do you now just and before we went live, we mentioned you played Alien, and we've played Alien as well. What else are you going to include in this? Is it horror, and you're going to be doing sci-fi? Is there anything you haven't yet done?
Oh, like what I'm looking to include in Gone Rogue? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, all for Gone Rogue.
For me, the way I kind of have it is I'm focusing on the mysterious, the eerie, everything in between is kind of how I've put it, because I do really like exploring horror, and that's not to say there aren't other things that I don't want to explore, but for now I'm kind of letting myself, follow the what does my heart want type thing. But that doesn't mean I'm not open. I mean, everything in between kind of is open-ended in the sense that there's a lot of stuff I really like. I'm a little burned out on superhero stuff right now, but I do really like some superhero stuff, and I really enjoy taking settings that are kind of done in a particular way and then doing them a little differently. Like if I could take superheroes and make it horror, or which has been done, but I just think it's interesting to ask those questions. Like, okay, well, what if you do this? What if we did it this way? Is definitely something I would like to look more at. System wise, one thing that I haven't, one system I haven't played that I have a lot of interest in trying is Dread. Really? Just because the nature of it if y'all don't know Dread basically uses a Jenga tower as you're playing the game, and you have to move pieces and you don't want it to fall because that's bad news. It's really cool. Just a really cool idea. I actually just recently played 10 Candles for the first time. Granted, I did it on stream, so I didn't get quite the experience of doing it in person. But those kinds of systems that are built specifically to create this sort of sense of dread is amazing. So I definitely have some interest in some of those kinds of things. Whether or not I'm going to do that anytime soon remains to be seen, but definitely something I could see in the future.
You reminded me of 10 Candles. That when we've played that, we had a great time, and I think the bit that kind of touched me the most in that is near the beginning. You kind of, if you play the game, you record your goodbye message. So you kind of, here's your character, this is who you're going to be, whether it's modern setting or not, and you say your goodbye message. And you need to kind of play the game a couple of times, because to really get into it, you have this sign off. And Aliens does the same kind of thing. It does that Sigourney Weaver moment of, my name is blah, blah, blah. I am the last survivor of... And it's the rest of the people around the table have gone, wow, yeah, well done, you did it. It's a game where you know you're going to die, or more than likely you're going to die, so it ends. But you can have some fantastic moments.
Oh, yeah.
I love those.
Oh yeah, me too. I just think that's just I mean, to me, all of that is really trying to take a genre and figure out how to make you feel like you're playing in that genre. And I think that's really, really cool and clever when you're able to do it.
Okay, we are going to wrap up there, folks. Megan, anything else you'd like to say? We're going to end with the latest trailer. So we're gonna go out on that. But Megan, any last thing? And Jen, any last questions?
No, I think I got my answers about the cosplay and makeup stuff, because that's where I'm like, oh, I love it.
Oh, good. I do too. It's fun. I'm with you.
Any last teasers? Any last things you want to shout out?
Oh, well, for those of you who didn't see it already, the trailer that we played earlier, this is the world premiere of it. Nobody's gotten to see it before.
Oh, wow.
So
fantastic.
Yeah, I get to see that all over again. And I don't know. I don't think there's much else that I have to bring up. I think we covered pretty much all of it, except if you're looking for Harbingers, Eden Redux, which is chapter 2, it will be coming out hopefully in early 2022. We're going to give everybody the break for Christmas and then hop back in after that. And you can obviously stay tuned on all of the social medias to learn when it will be coming out and all the additional informations. But beyond that, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. It's great that you come on and have a chat. You are our first kind of actor. We do a lot of interviews with writers and artists. And when you put out the announcement about the new business, that's when I got in touch. And we kind of talked a little bit about doing like a cast interview for maybe the next show. That could be quite interesting. Yeah. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
If everyone's up for it. But thank you. This has been really good. It's really nice to get different people's ideas about how they produce their shows, how they create their stories, and I love that. And for you to share the time, thank you very much. I have mentioned several times, each of us are in different countries. We're hooking up with 3 different countries here. Jen is an American, but she's living in Norway.
Yeah, you got it.
There you go. I have to keep saying it every single time. But right, we're going to leave you all now. Thank you very much for joining us. This will be up on YouTube over the weekend. Help spread the word. Check out Gone Rogue Entertainment. Like it, subscribe to them. Like it and subscribe to us. And we'll see you all again soon. We're going to leave you with a trailer. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Exiled from the shining metropolis of Goshen. Memories wiped. And loosed into a walled concrete warren of slums. Residents must eke out a living amidst the crime, poverty, and suffocating overcrowding. Sure, you could ride the bullet home if you've got the credits and the luck to win the lotto. But you're not a rich corpo in town for a deal or some mirrorhead on deployment. You're here to stay. You're home. You're in Eden Redux.